Mr. Minister, first of all, let me mention what an extraordinary comment and what an overarching one, the comment about infinite possibilities, and particularly in the context of the fantastic change that is happening and the future of national wealth and global wealth in terms of knowledge. You touched on many of those arenas, but you're also probably the architect of a new idea, which I didn't see you touching upon, and I'd love to hear some more comments about that. Just recently, I was overseas, and on more than one occasion, there's been a comment about your suggestion about a new university called the Innovation University. And you didn't touch upon that. I'm sure that there are elements of that that you touched about. But you're obviously the person who's been seen as associated with that rather interesting idea. Would you like to shed some more light on that?
Just a few minutes, I'll tell you what my concept is. For example, I think that this country is going to do things which have never been done anywhere else in the world. The reason is because we have the opportunity to do it while others have done it. Others have built their cities, for example. We were to build our cities. Now, what should a 21st century city be like? What kind of transportation system should it have? What kind of alternative energy consumption patterns should it have? What kind of academic institutions should it have? How is the migration into cities, which is going to reach a level of 40%, how are you going to deal with that? What is going to be the houses for people who belong to the disadvantaged groups, right? What are going to be the advanced materials that are using in building those houses instead of mortar and bricks, right? All these issues are up in the air. So we need actually to build a university around what it takes to build a modern city, a 21st century city. It will require economists, it will require social scientists, it will require philosophers. What does identity mean in an urban community and in an urban city? How do you get people together? How do you change the way people live? How do you change the way people work, right? Go to work. What kind of energy system should you put in place? So there's an amalgamation of science, technology, the humanities, all in one. And therefore, there should be an innovative university for urban planning the 21st century city. If we succeed in India, we can market it to the rest of the world, because large parts of the world will have to build new cities in the future. This is just one idea of what an innovation university should be like. We have 14 such planned by 2010. I'll be open to ideas, because I don't plan them. Innovation is when you plan what an innovation should be and what an innovation university should be.
Arun Kapoor.
You talked about the 100 children who go to school, and out of them only 13 going on to college, and wanting to take that to 30. And that move makes you want to open up higher education because of the requirement. But I want to ask you about the question, just because you talked about 100 kids, but there are many more kids who are not in school.
That's right.
Right? There's a huge number that's not in school that doesn't figure in that number 100. And to be able to bring that large number of children out of school into the system. I know Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan did a lot of work on access, but there's still a lot to do. And I didn't hear you mention anything about opening up the school sector, as much as we heard you talk about opening up the higher university sector. I know that you're talking about private-public partnership in the 2,500 model schools that the Prime Minister talked about. But beyond that, are there any thoughts of opening up the school sector in almost the same dimensions as the high school sector?
Well, I don't think the school sector will open up in the same dimension, because if you look at school education in this country, 93% is controlled by government today, and 7% is in the private sector. If you look at higher education, say engineering, 90% is private sector, 10% is government. If you look at medicine, 40% is private sector, 60% is government, or it's the other way around, right? So you can't change that paradigm, but what you can do is to bring the private sector into management. What you can do is allow the private sector to work with the public sector, because lots of public sector schools may not work. Take, for example, the municipal schools of Delhi. A lot of them, in terms of quality, are quite poor. Now, you can have a public-private partnership. One of the things I want to do is I want to pass a policy. I have not done it yet, so people should not, you say, I make a declaration and then people ask for clarifications. What I do is I open my mind to my audience. And people think that I have taken a decision and they go and say, this is what I have done.
No, but do make a declaration, Kapil.
Yeah, so I'm making that. What I'm trying to tell you is, for example, and this is very, very important, why should not public assets be used fruitfully? I mean, a school closes at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and then nothing happens between 2 and 7 in the evening. Now, it's a waste of a public asset. So we should allow schools, if they have the faculty, to do 2 shifts, that will increase capacity by 100%. And if they can't do 2 shifts, we should allow the private sector to use the public asset for skill development. We can decide as a matter of policy what skills should be developed. So here you have the opportunity of the private sector coming into the picture, using a public sector. It doesn't have to build a school. It doesn't have to rent a building. It doesn't have to do anything. We allow it, by it paying a certain amount of money to use that public asset for public good. Now, we need to think in those terms, because it'll take us time to build new institutions, to build new schools. Nowadays with the CPWD and the contractors, you're not going to have that happen very soon. So let's use what we have to the best. And the same thing, for example, in Delhi, I've already done that. All engineering colleges are allowed to do double shift in Delhi. And I want this to be a national policy. And it can only be a national policy if all of us, if I talk about it like this and you don't report that it's a decision that I have taken. Because otherwise they'll say I'm entrenching on somebody's field. The point is, this is the way we want to think. Why do we waste the use of public assets? Why do we not have private sector manage some of the schools which are not being managed properly? And I'm sure the private sector, and why do we not have, why should I have to go? And this is another issue. One of the big issues in this country is finance. Institutions, and this is something that I want to say, and I'm very concerned about it. We call education charity. That's the law of the Supreme Court. You have to be either a charitable trust, or you have to be a society, or maybe a not-for-profit corporation. But it's charity. Now, once it's charity, when I want to set up an education institution, I have to go to a bank for a loan. And that loan is given to me at a commercial rate. And I have to return it in 7 years' time. But if you want to build a road, that's infrastructure. That's not charity. But you are part of priority lending. So you can go to a bank and get loan, which you will return at soft rates of interest, which you will return over a period of time. So education, which is charity, has to get commercial loans at commercial rates, and infrastructure, which is not charity, gets lending at a lower rate. This is a contradiction in terms. It means we are not giving enough emphasis to what is a national asset, which is education. So this must change, right? Number one. Number two, every institution should be allowed to access a bank for setting up an institution, so Government of India won't have to ask the Finance Ministry for money. So we get financed by the private sector. Government can pay back the private sector for building the school over a period of 20 years on an annuity basis. So they get paid back. They are entitled, the school will be entitled to admit, say, 500 students who they can charge fee from, and another 500 who will be provided free education. So it's a win-win situation for everybody, right? That also can be done. And there are lots of possibilities. Again, it's a world of infinite possibility. The only thing is we need to come together and work together. The other thing is each child should be entitled to a loan, especially if he wants to do professional education, which will then reduce the desire of state governments to have a cap on fees. The cap on fees is there because the family silver has to be sold to send a child to medical school or to engineering school. But if the child can get a loan with a guarantee, right, or have a credit guarantee corporation or something like that, right? So I'm thinking in terms of setting up an education finance corporation. This is not also a decision of the government. This is a proposal. Okay? By the Ministry of Education. It's a proposal by the Ministry of Human Resource Development. We're talking to the Planning Commission. If we set up an education finance corporation with participation, public-private participation, we can easily garner 1 lakh crores, 100,000 crores and more. And then that system can be used for refinancing both institutions and giving loans to students, which will reduce the pressure of state governments to cap fees, which means institutions can charge a reasonable amount of money, right? So they can reimburse themselves, they can make a profit, invest it back into the sector, right? And at the same time, the child will not have to sell the family silver to get education. Well, we need some rational, practical solutions to take education forward.
My question is that we all know we need to have more teachers, not just at the primary level, but even in institutions like IIT and our medical colleges. What are the hurdles that the government faces for employing new teachers or retraining the teachers we already have? Is it lack of will, lack of talent, or is it just sheer laziness on the part of the state governments?
No, it's a market phenomenon. Why would I want to become a teacher? Why do people not go into the teaching profession? Why? Because I earn some amount of money. I don't think it's good enough, right? I can earn much more becoming a doctor, becoming an engineer, and it's, and I'm not allowed to teach anywhere else. I'm only allowed to teach in the university, so why would I want to be a teacher? So people don't go into the teaching profession. It's nothing to do with laziness of the state government. It's the market phenomenon. So you need to change that. You need to get more teachers into the system. How do you do that? One of the things we are discussing, I'm going to Hyderabad tomorrow morning, again discussion. What we're going to discuss amongst, I've called all the vice chancellors of the central universities, and I'm saying, why should not teachers be allowed to teach outside the university or getting projects outside the university? My teacher at Harvard Law used to argue cases in the Supreme Court of the United States and teach that case in class to me. He would earn money arguing the case in the Supreme Court, but for us it was great because he was teaching a live issue in class. So it enhances his knowledge. He gets more remuneration, right? He's not bound by the fee, by the salary structure of the university, right? And so you will get the best people into the teaching profession if you allow that kind of flexibility in the system. But the state has to be, enlightened enough and generous enough to allow that flexibility. Now we are trying to build that opinion within the university system and within government that flexibility should be allowed. We allow it in the IIT system. We allow it in IIMs. IIMs do a lot of, they earn a lot of money, faculty in the IIM. That's why there's no problem with faculty in the IIM. But there's a problem with faculty, in your affiliated colleges, in Delhi University and other colleges around the country. Why? Because there is no element of flexibility. So we need to bring that. Number one, we need to give more stipends when people go for doctorates. We need to give more stipends when we want to do we want to go into higher education and you want to be insured a job. So I think we need to put those systems in place to give more incentives for those who want. And remember, teaching is a wonderful profession because 50% of the time you're on holiday. Right? So if you get a good salary plus the ability to move out, and 50% of the time is a holiday, it's a great profession to be in. So, but you need to make that attractive. So that's the problem.
You extensively spoke about school education system and the various reforms that have been introduced to, improve the quality of the Indian education system. Now, for the last few years, I've been covering college admissions. What about the college education system? Because the pressure does exist on students. They have to meet those ambitious cutoff that, is set by colleges. Would you be looking into that?
Oh, yeah, we are looking at it very seriously. What we're doing is the following. Let me put it this way. The COPSE not only cleared a core curriculum, but the COPSE said that we'll try and hold one examination for all of India in the science stream. What does that mean? You have one examination for medicine, one examination for engineering, for all India. Once you have a core curriculum in 2013, that's what we're trying to do. The idea is you don't have to sit for 10 different examinations. Today, I called one of the IIT directors and I said, let's work with COPSE because your examination should also merge into that one examination. So all institutions of higher learning in the science stream should have one examination. which should not be a subject matter knowledge examination. There are two examinations that are very important before a child actually moves into higher education. One is subject matter knowledge. Does he know enough physics? Does he know enough chemistry? Does he know enough biology? What is his knowledge of the subject? That's the class 12 examination. Then you move on to your fundamental knowledge of the subject, right? Your understanding of the subject, your raw intelligence, your sense of awareness of other issues connected with the subject. So that's like the SAT. Okay? So you have a general examination, which is an all India examination. You can think in terms of giving weightage to class 12 plus that examination, and then you have your merit. And then you decide which college you want to go to. And there'll be no capitation fee because it'll be an all India merit list. So nobody can charge capitation fee. That's what we're thinking of.
There's a question. You've been raising your hand, and then we'll go behind, and then I think we have to wind up.
Yeah.
You have a whip, I hear. This is a very...
I have a whip everywhere I go.
Sir, we really admire the vision that you brought to education as a parent. It's fantastic to have this vision coming from the level that it's coming now. Just a small observation and a question to you. My son is currently giving his class 10 boards, and I happened to pick up a conversation after the exam which disturbed me, because what the students were talking about was that it's a lottery. I mean, if I get set 2, it's very easy. Set 1 and set 3 are more difficult. Another student was saying if I was giving the exam out of Faridabad, I would have got an easier paper. So this is an anomaly which exists, and I know that you're doing away with class 10, but it will still be a class 12 board. So how would you look to address such a situation? Because the students were clearly disturbed that, I mean, how do we go explaining to colleges that we got a more difficult paper? So,
well, when you have a core curriculum and every school then has a core curriculum, then you will have one examination. Then it'll be not a problem. But you know, even the examination system we give, I don't think we give enough cushion to the child. I mean, I can sit on an exam on one day and do fairly well. On another day, I can do badly. On a third day, I can do even better, right? So I think an examination should not be a one-time examination. This is my personal feeling. Again, this is just a thought. I mean, a child should have the ability to improve. So you should have, say, free examination in 6 months before you enter college. And if you've not done well in one, you can sit and improve your this thing. What's wrong with it? You know, you may be ill, you may have, 99 degrees temperature, or something else may have happened. You may have been disturbed because of some family problems. See, your fate in life can't depend on one exam. That's not fair to the child. So this is what we need as a society to think, because ultimately the child should be at the center of everything, not the parent, not the teacher, not the institution, not the politician, the child.
Kapil, we have a question.
Last, please.
Yeah, last question, okay. Sorry.
Kapil, you have drawn a very wonderful panorama of the education. And the two obstacles, as I see, is one, the infrastructure, and the other is the faculty. You also said the way ahead is distance education.
Yes.
Is it possible that we take a leapfrog, and since the broadband should be there in 3 years, we start teaching faculty for the distance education from now? Yes. Because that will solve both the problems.
I agree. We are structuring a new distance education policy. At the moment, in fact, I'm trying to bring about a statute. After the National Council for Higher Education is set up, under that entity, distance education will be decided by them. And so no longer will you have this AICTE IGNOU structure. And then we'll have a far more cohesive policy. And I think one of the, what you are saying is something that needs to be done and needs to be addressed.
Well, thank you so much, Kapil. Thank you so much for this phenomenal elucidation of this.